Happy 1 year! Oh my gosh, I cannot believe that the podcast, One World Countless Stories, has been around for a full year, and I have posted consistently bi-weekly. I've posted consistently, and we have 29 stories shared, which is like so crazy and mind-blowing and so exciting because there's just so much more to share and do. And I wanted today's episode to be celebrating the fact that we hit year one and that it happened. Now, I remember when I first started my podcast and how scared I was and how nervous I was, but it truly, truly has been the best decision and best thing I've ever done. Something that I'm most proud about. As much as it fills others' cups, it also fills mine. I genuinely love sitting down with people, all people, any person, and just talking about the struggles they've been through, how they've overcome them, and just talk about the beautiful parts of life that sometimes we don't talk so much about because they're hard. And I am so excited that I have this platform. And in the new year, I'm going to be doing some more solo episodes of me just talking about some topics and things that I'm going on that are really important in my life. And I have been on the craziest journey this last year. It's kind of crazy that this year is coming to an end. This year, I decided to take a year off of school, which was one of the most amazing, but also the most challenging years of my life. I was at my happiest point, but also at my darkest point. There's kind of a very high and a very low. I'm excited to share more about the lessons I've learned while I was traveling in Europe for the last couple of months. I'm excited to share some of the things that I've been learning in therapy before that trip and that I continue to learn. I am someone who just loves to learn. I am so curious. I absorb everything like a sponge. And that's why I really love this podcast because I get to sit down with so many different types of people who have lived completely different lives, because not one person has lived the same life, which is so beautiful. And I'm glad that I have a place to help others share their story as well. In the last episode, I talked a little bit about the power of storytelling and how powerful it truly is. And I believe that we can all learn so much from each other by listening and being vulnerable and sharing others' stories and just all of the things, all of the storytelling. I told a story I think it was not the last podcast episode, but the one where I talk about some of the lessons I've learned in Europe. And one of those lessons that I learned was that storytelling is so powerful. And when you talk about what's going on with you, it gives people permission to open up about themselves. Sometimes I think I'm like, whoa, I share way too much information, but I genuinely do it because I don't want to gatekeep information. I don't want to keep anything a secret. If I read a book that absolutely changes my life, you betcha I'm going to tell you about it and recommend you read it, because I love to share and teach and educate and just be a part of your amazing journey in any way possible. And so now that I've kind of talked about that, I wanted to thank you all so much for showing up bi-weekly, listening to the podcast episode. If you haven't already, please click that subscribe button so you get notified every single time I post a new episode. And just one more thing I could ask you to celebrate the year one, if you could do one of the two things: either drop a comment down on the podcast, what you feel, what you think about it, if you've enjoyed it. And the second thing is, if you could share this podcast with one other person today, that would be absolutely amazing. And if you ever listen to any other episode that you feel like someone might resonate with or might relate to, please don't hesitate to share that with them. The more that we can share and use word of mouth to get this podcast out there, the better. This podcast means so much to me. I put my heart and soul into it. Celebrating year one, that was on July 13th. I made a post and just talking about how it's hard work to be a podcaster, that I never knew it was like this much work. There's the prep, there's the interviews themselves, then there's editing everything, then there's episode notes, and it is just an extreme amount of work, and I love it. It is my pride and joy. I love it so much, but it is something that takes up a lot of my time. And so it would mean the world if you shared it with someone, and, just share the love. And thank you again for being here and showing up and listening to the podcast. It has just been unreal how fast it has grown and how many people listen to it every other week and enjoy it. The feedback that I've been getting is crazy great. And if you're interested in sharing your story on the podcast, please do not hesitate to reach out to me. I am looking for people to interview in the next couple of months. So let me know. You can DM me on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, anywhere pretty much. You can find me anywhere. So anywhere you want to message me, please feel free to reach out. I would love to interview. If you're kind of like thinking, oh, like, I don't know if I want to dive into my story completely, that's okay. We have the flexibility to talk about one specific area of your life, a specific topic. For example, if you wanted to just talk about your career, we could talk about your career. If you just wanted to talk about mental health and what mental health has looked like for you, we can do that. This podcast is a beautiful, beautiful thing. And so if you want to talk about a specific topic with me, I love that. Let's meet and chat and have an awesome conversation. But if you're also wanting to share your life story from when you were younger to some of the challenges and how you've overcome them, then I would also love that. So that is all I have for now. Today, I am sharing every single podcast that has been put out. There's going to be a little clip from it. So in every single podcast episode, at the very end, I ask 4 questions. Ask 4 questions at the end. I ask, what is the best advice you've received and from who? I've asked, what is the worst advice you've received, and I've asked, what is a piece of advice you would give your younger self, or if you can't think of it in that context, someone in the younger generations. And then to finish it off, I say, what are you grateful for? And I thought it would be so cool if I went to all the stories that have been told and pulled those pieces, those little clips from the episode and put them all together. So that's what I did. So we are going to be hearing what is the best advice you've received and from whom, and what is a piece of advice you'd tell your younger self or someone in the younger generation. And I'm so excited. So let's not waste one more minute. Thank you again so much, and happy 1 year. This has been amazing, and I can't wait to share more of my experiences, the lessons I've learned, but also more real, authentic experiences and stories with you all. Thank you so much for being here. Let's jump in right now. All right, so I wanted to start with answering the questions, answering those 2 questions for me right now where I am in my life. So asking myself, what is the best advice I've ever received and from whom? I think I consume a lot of quotes and motivation, but there's just like so many good pieces of advice that I could share. But one that really is serving me right now is there is so much peace in knowing that what is meant for you will find you. I absolutely love that quote / piece of advice, in that, you put so much stress. I put so much stress on everything, but you will not miss out on what is meant for you. And that is just such a beautiful reminder. And I love that as a piece of advice, to just let things flow towards you, let go a little bit, open your hand instead of closing it. And that is some of the best advice that has been really helping me lately. The next question is, what is a piece of advice you tell your younger self or someone in the younger generation? What I would say to that is, I would say to my younger self that everything is going to be okay, and that you don't have to put so much pressure on yourself. A lot during my story, you can hear it in episode 1. It's changed a bit now because there's added to the story. But throughout my life, I put a lot of pressure on myself to achieve academic success and a version of success that I no longer define as success. And I put a lot of pressure on myself to be a certain way, act a certain way, do certain things to please others. And I would just tell my younger self and my current self sometimes too that it's going to be okay. And I just want to give my younger self a hug and just say, you know what? You did an amazing job and you don't give yourself enough credit for it. So that is what I would tell my younger self. Now let's roll into the other podcast. So episode number 2 is Carrie Rosa's story, making the choice to change your life and love every minute of it. What is the best piece of advice you've received and who gave it to you?
I'd have to go back to, the most life-altering best advice that I've received is listen to your body. Your body never lies.
Mm-hmm.
And that was expressed to me in that way by my mentor, Carol, from the Lighthouse Institute when I was exposed to the psychosomatic therapy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that is
the
great.
body never lies.
Yeah.
So if you're feeling like you don't know what decision to make and your brain's telling you something and your heart's telling you something, usually your heart's right because your brain's going to tell you all kinds of stories and 99% of it is BS.
Yeah. Episode number 3 with Bridget Halfyard. Her story is the impact of hockey and not letting anything steal your joy through the tough times. What is the best advice you've ever received and from whom?
I would have to say the best advice is do not let anyone steal your joy. And that would be from my husband, Stephen. And don't let anyone or anything. So no person or no leukemia or anything. Don't let anyone steal your joy. That's yours and you get to keep it. Don't give it to anyone.
I like that. I like that a lot. Okay. So what advice would you give your younger self or someone in the younger generation?
Be persistent. Don't give up. Just, set goals for yourself. And in those goals, achieve them along the way. Set bigger goals each time. But just be persistent and again, don't let people steal your joy. Don't let anyone knock you down. Just keep moving forward. No matter what you have to go through, just keep moving forward.
Episode number 4, Noreen Music Story, bouncing back after life-shattering news and redefining job security. What is some of the best advice you've received and from whom?
Oh, some of the best advice I've ever received. I would say probably that everything is outable, and that's Marie Forleo. I really resonate with that. I really believe that everything is figure outable. There's nothing that, technology wise, social media wise, starting your own business, whatever, you can figure it out.
Yeah, because nowadays technology is at the tip of our fingers, so we have no excuse. We can Google everything.
That's right. It doesn't matter how old you are. It doesn't matter what you're doing. Everything is figure outable. So that's courtesy of Marie Forleo.
I love that. Okay, next question. What advice would you give your younger self or someone in the younger generation?
I would tell my younger self to wear a bikini wherever I went because that was the best it was ever going to get.
That's so funny.
Yeah. It's like, yeah, you know what? You really do look good naked at 19. Like, stop being so insecure. Oh my goodness. And even though I'm joking about wearing a bikini, that is what I would tell myself is stop being so insecure. Like, you are unique, you are valuable, you have the right to shine your light and shine, be proud of who you are. Your body, your mind, your creativity, your passions, just, stand where you're planted and yeah.
Michaela Burkhart's story, discovering who you are and choosing to do what you love to do instead of what everyone else wants you to do. What is some of the best advice you've ever received, and who was that from?
Oh my gosh. I don't know.
You think about it. It's all good.
Hard. I mean, my mom has really given me like just great advice.
Mhm.
Always. Be kind to everybody, you know, just do what you love. Do it for yourself.
Yeah.
Just everything. She's just taught me everything. I owe everything to my mom. I think that she's just given me the best advice.
Mhm.
Yeah, just a really strong thing. Maybe not the advice that she's given me, but what she's done with her life. But like just her life story, I think just what she's been through in her life has really been a great example for me.
Mhm.
So I wouldn't maybe say the best advice that I've been given, but just the example that she has shown to me
Mhm.
of how to just do what you love to do, not worrying about settling down and getting married and not having to worry about that, but also just like going through it. Just do what you love to do. Worry about that stuff later.
Mhm.
You know, she really taught me that. Just she moved away when she was little from a completely different country. And so
Yeah.
like alone, and she just, yeah, she's a really big inspiration for me. That's just what I would say for that. Just
Yeah.
everything that my mom has taught me.
Brilliant answer. Yeah. So what advice would you give your younger self? Or if you can't think of like your younger self, maybe someone in the younger generation?
Don't stress too much. You know, everything will come together when it happens. I think that a lot of people, I not so much myself, but I think a lot of the younger generation are really wanting to hurry up and like get out of their childhood even,
Mhm.
worrying too much about things. Like my advice would just be to just chill out a little bit and wait, because even when you graduate high school, there you have so much time. So if you don't know what you want to do, don't worry about it. It's going to come together. You're going to find who you are, and you need to take the time to do that, because, you know, not everybody knows what they're going to do right out of high school. It's rare when those people know what they want to do.
Yeah.
So just stop rushing to grow up or to figure things out right away. It will all come together in the end. You just have to go with the flow and do what you love.
Episode number 6, Ash Springer's story, creating a foundation while staying curious and exploring new work opportunities through your career journey. What is some of the best advice you've received, and from who?
Best advice. That's a good question. And I
Oh,
think,
sorry, you're gonna have to restart that. I didn't get the beginning. Sorry.
okay, the best advice I think I got from my mother. And that is, I was struggling, I think, with a financial or budget issue. And I think her advice was, she turned around and said, you finally actually came and asked for help. I didn't struggle anymore on my own. A lot of times I try to figure stuff all out on my own. And the best advice that I ever got was ask for help when you need it.
All right, next question. What advice would you give your younger self, or if you can't think of it in that way, maybe someone in a younger generation?
My advice to my younger self is, or somebody younger, younger generation, is there will be challenges in life. Be patient, learn from them. And if you really want something, if you really desire it and you concentrate on it, it will happen for you. 100%. You got to focus on it. You gotta do the steps to get towards it. You can't just wish something for yourself. I know there's books out there that say you just think it into existence, but I don't believe that 100% true. I think you do think things into existence, but because you think about it so much, you start taking actions.
Mhm.
So my advice to people is set a goal. There will be challenges. Think about it every day, but take action. You got to take action towards what you want. Otherwise, it will never happen.
Yeah, I love that. That is actually like the best, like that's beautiful advice. I think that, I mean, for me, that reflects so greatly because I think, you're right. We're told all the time just to like manifest things and just think about it and it'll come. But I think the second piece to it is actually taking the action, which is the most important piece. So I think that's great advice.
I mean, action can be as simple as just writing down what you want. And
Yeah.
that's the first step to action. But once you take that first step, then the other steps seem to fall into place. So, and that works for everything. That's my health, work, career, family. It applies to all of it.
Mhm. Absolutely.
I find that like when you do make goals and stuff, you should make goals for all areas of your life. There's a big one too. Don't just always think about work or don't just always think about school. Make goals for every part of your life.
Mhm.
Relationships, health, school, work, wherever you are in life, stuff like that.
Yeah, that's also great advice. Episode number 7 is Anna Marie Novello's story, Making Your Passion into Your Priority in Everything You Do. What is some of the best advice you've received and from whom?
I already touched on it earlier, but I think the best advice I'd ever received was when you love what you do, the success will come. If you work hard, success will come. From my parents, they taught us from a very young age, if you work hard, you do your work, then you will get rewarded. And I think that to me is like one of the best things that I've ever, like the best advice that I've ever heard. But I've also received a lot of good advice from different chefs, and I think the biggest thing is communication is super important in every industry, and making sure that you're in a situation where you're going to succeed, that you're going to see growth, you're going to see yourself succeeding, and that if you feel stuck and you don't see any more growth, then it might be time to move on to a new opportunity. And I think that's also super important, not to get stale in what you're doing.
Okay, the next question is, what advice would you give your younger self or someone in the younger generation? I know you've touched on some stuff already in this interview, but if you can go outside of that, that would be incredible.
I think the most important thing I would tell my younger self or anybody else is do what you want to do for yourself. As important as it is to have a support system and want to do things for others, you're only going to succeed at your peak when you're doing things for you. You're not doing things for others, and you're not just trying to, like, of course it's great when you get to prove other people wrong and you get to do what you love, but if you're doing what you love, that's the most important thing. And I think doing the hard things when they're hard and doing the easy things when they're hard too. Like, you have to do hard things to see growth. And I think a lot of people don't want to hear that. People just want to choose the easy way out, but sometimes you have to do the hardest things in your life, and you see the most growth, and you see the most true self when you're in those hard situations.
That's amazing advice. Episode number 8 is Lisa L's story, letting the control go and stepping into the unknown with courage and love. What is the best advice you've received and from who?
Okay, well, I have 3 pieces of advice.
Okay.
I've gathered them over the years, and I've written a blog on this, so I have this all written down in finer detail. But basically, I remember it like this: the lighthouse, the trapeze, and the first kiss. Okay, so the lighthouse is this: be the lighthouse in your life. Lighthouses don't go to shipwrecks. The ships come to the lighthouse. meaning be the light, be connected to your source, shine bright, and you will draw in the ships, and they will find you, and they will get their inspiration and their light and all the things they need by you being the lighthouse. But that means you stand there and be firm. So that's the first one, is lighthouse. The second one is the trapeze. And the trapeze is like the trapeze artist where they're swinging from swing to swing, at the circus. But there's this moment when you have to kind of let go of one swing and grab onto the other swing, when they're doing their twirls in the air and they have to grab onto the other swing. There's that moment when you are suspended in the air and there's nothing there to really catch you. But that's the moment you've basically committed 100% to what it is you want. And that's where you have to get, is the place where you are suspended in the air and you don't know what's really going to happen. Because that's when I think the universe can really be like, okay, here's the other swing. Let's catch the other swing.
Mm-hmm.
Because otherwise you're going back to the other swing, right? You want to be able to move on with flow and grace and effortlessly to the next thing. But there has to be that moment when you're suspended in the air, basically, and no one's there to catch you except for the universe. Like God's there to catch you, right? So that is the trapeze, but that's what commitment takes. You have to release and there's going to be moments where it feels so incredibly scary. You don't even know which way is up. You don't know which way is down. You're spinning. Feel through that and just know that there's going to be another swing there to grab onto that's going to be awesome. And you're going to land it. You're going to crush it. You're going to land the twirly thing and land on the next swing, and everyone's going to clap for you, right?
Yeah.
So that's that. And the first kiss, what was the first kiss again? I've done this talk so many times, but I'm like, the first kiss, I think it's like allowing for some magic to happen. It's like that anticipation, having those butterflies in your stomach. I think there's so much about a first kiss that is that you can relate to as into your whole life, right? If you can find that place where you have that passion and that love and that drive and get those butterflies in your stomach for your life, for your purpose, I think it's a great, it's something just to remember that, it all starts there. It all starts kind of with the butterflies. It starts with finding that purpose and passion and calling into that, tuning into that purpose and passion, and enjoying the moment, enjoy it and revel in it. It's just so a beautiful moment, right? So that's my 3 pieces of life advice. Those are the 3 pieces of advice I'd give to my daughters too, if they're ever
It's so beautiful because that wrapped everything up very well. In what we've talked about, it gave a kind of a really nice little dip into just wrapping it up really nicely. And I think that it's so cool how you use those images and that, at least I could picture it in my head and analogies. So I love that so much. Episode number 9 is Jason Dimnick's story, dealing with the feeling of not being enough and moving through challenges with self-care and faith. What is the best advice you've received and from whom?
Oh, wow.
You can think about it. You can think about it for a second.
I don't know, again, if it's just one specific person or that, but again, I think, and maybe it does come back to that one conversation I shared. It just pops into my mind, and maybe because I've shared it already.
Mm-hmm.
So my mentor, his name's Sam Seifert, and he serves at Southview Alliance Church. And he was the first person that I worked with in ministry and youth. Great friend, great mentor. And I look to him a lot. He's given me a lot of wisdom over life. But again, just in the sense of ministry, was what we do, what I do, I can never change what's happening in someone's life. Sometimes we hear these things that are going on, or have a youth come to me and there's really difficult things happening in their life. My impulse, my desire right away is just to pull them out of that, or to change that,
Mm-hmm.
to see differently for them. And I can't do that.
Mm-hmm.
Only God can. God is the one who can work in and through that. my role is to walk with them again, to speak truth and to speak hope, to point them towards who God is, and allow God to be the one who actually brings that change within their life. So I can be a part of that. And it's an exciting thing to think about, like, wow, I get to partner with God and what he's doing within this world. But at the end of the day, it's up to him. And so I need to remind myself of that often in ministry. And so maybe that's where I am.
I really do think that's great advice, because I relate to that. I was very similar with some of my friends. In the past, I've always been like, how can I help you? How can I get you out of this? Because I want you to be okay, and I want you to be good and healthy and loving life. I want to help you get out of that place. And then talking with counselors and different things, I had gotten this similar piece of advice where it's like, you can't change them, but you know what, you can stand with them and be there for them when they need you.
Yeah.
And that was like some really big life altering advice, because I was like, I'm trying to help them and change them and get to where I think they should be, which is better, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes they really do need to go through that hard time. So my approach really shifted and was more like, I'm here for you. If you need to talk to me, like, I'm not going to judge you. I don't think you need to change. I'm just going to be here and walk with you through it, so you don't have to do it alone, versus what can I do to fix it, right?
Totally.
So I think that is really great advice. And I think it's something that a lot of us can apply and start to think about, and really just examine our relationships and be like, what role do I play? Am I trying to fix, or am I trying to be there and just walk with them, kind of thing? So I thank you for sharing that, because I really do. Is what advice would you give your younger self or someone in the younger generation?
I think connecting it back to that self-awareness piece is just like, be aware of who you are, and love that too. Don't feel you need to change for other people, but God has made you, and that is a good thing. And you are a beautiful creation and a valued person. And so just being, again, aware of who you are, and knowing that transformation will come through that, and actually greater enjoyment and fulfillment will come through life as you embrace that. Don't try to be someone else.
Yeah, I think that's great advice as well. Episode number 11 is Felicia Yep's story, How to Keep Going When All Odds Are Against You. What is the best advice you've received, and from whom?
That is a great question. I think I'd have to go back to that choosing progress over perfection. And I think I got that from Marie Forleo, who is a thought leader. She's fantastic. So I really, really believe in that just get it done. Done is better than perfect, because that is always huge for me. I've really lived in this bubble of perfection. And only when I started to believe in myself and just going for it, that I've really seen huge growth, because wanting to be perfect has stopped me from doing many things that I think I could have done a lot sooner. So I really believe in that, progress over perfection.
What is some advice that you'd give your younger self or someone in the younger generation?
I was thinking about this one today, actually, and comparison is the greatest killer of joy. So when I was younger, I would always look to other people saying, wow, that person has a great job. And when I became a mom, it became harder to see other women climb this corporate ladder, where I was cleaning dirty diapers and just wishing that I could be there. But I realized that's my choice. I chose to be a mom, and I chose to be a stay-at-home mom. So I have to celebrate the choices that I make and own up to them. So I think comparison is the greatest killer of joy, and your biggest competition is yourself. Oh my gosh, just all the things that I've stopped myself from doing because I didn't think that I was good enough. You know, there's so much imposter syndrome. So once you get rid of that imposter syndrome, I mean, it'll always creep back, but you got to just kick it to the curb. You can accomplish so much. When you believe in yourself, wow, the possibilities are endless. And I really, really, really believe in that.
That's awesome. I love that advice. I hope people are writing this down because that was like, these answers are like golden nuggets. Episode number 12, Jada Wallace's story, learning how to step into your own identity despite what others want and how to cope with anxiety. What is some of the best advice you've received and from whom?
Oh, wow, that's a good one. I have to really think about that. I feel like when it comes to advice, as I love to listen to everybody's stories and hear how they did something, and then I kind of just I take what's useful for me and adopt it to my life.
Yeah.
So I feel like I've never really recognized like specific advice from people. I know that one of my favorite quotes, I forgot who it's from, but it's like laughter is the best medicine. I think if you take a break from anything and you give yourself time to just laugh at something, and then you feel refreshed and you can go back to your work better. I've just really, I don't know if there's like specific advice that has been like, it's completely changed my life, but there's so many amazing people in my life that every time they talk, I know that I could take something that's inspirational and that's productive to my life.
What is some advice that you would tell your younger self, or maybe if it's not your younger self, maybe the younger generation?
Oh, I like that. My younger self was very, I think she's very confused, right? As I said, I think there was so many different voices in my head that I was confused. I was like, what do I do? But I think I would tell her, trust the process. Things will happen, clarity will come. And I'm like, I was thinking about this the other day. I'm 18. Like, what is 18? I'm so young. What do I know about the world? But from like being a child till now, there's so much that we've learned. And I think sometimes we even undermine the fact that we undermine ourselves because of our age. But we know so much and we've learned so much and we're going to learn so much, and that's so important. And so I feel like I would definitely tell her to trust the process and to be to just be calm, be cool, just keep doing what you're doing, because even the bad parts of our lives, they reconnect and they sometimes can turn out to be good. So I think
The bad part of our lives, they're really important too. You know, we want to have the good times, but I find like the most learning comes from the bad times, which is unfortunate, but it's the way that life goes. So that is good advice. And even I need to hear that. It's just like everything will work out. Just be patient. It's just great advice all around. Episode number 13, Sheila Hugaboom's story, the different stages of grieving a loss and learning the importance of your tribe. What is some of the best advice you've received and from whom?
Well, like I said, it was the stepping and standing in the shoes of others.
Right.
Honestly, that is, I have used that and I have shared that so many times for people. And I'm hoping it's helped with different situations of friends in having problems.
Yeah. Advice would you give your younger self or someone in the younger generation?
I don't know. It depends on what age bracket. I would say you really got me.
It's okay. You can think about it.
Yeah. I mean, you just need to challenge yourself in doing many different things so that you can kind of pick and choose what's going to work for you. Don't just get kind of pigeonholed into one because my mom did this, I should do this or whatever. Explore yourself and allow yourself to figure out what's going to work for you. And it might not be exactly what your parents think or whatever, but they can guide you and help you. But life is your journey. And it's your parents normally have kind of a plan for you, but you got to forge your own plan as you go and be reasonable and have discussions and that. But yeah, I wish I had had more guidance that way
Yeah.
of figuring out my plan. There really wasn't, because my brother really had a lot of challenges and they really focused on him. So that would be my advice.
Episode number 14 is Sherry Collins' story, deciding to let go of the baggage of life in order to live freely. What is the best advice you've received and from whom?
I would obviously my mom. She's full of advice, whether I want to hear it or not.
Yeah.
Most of it is good. But yeah, I guess the biggest thing my mom said to me, and it was when I was just anguishing about my dad and carrying that around, and she could see how fruitless it was because it wasn't going to change the situation. She just said to me, she goes, Sherry, she goes, right now you are carrying a deluxe 9-piece set of luggage around with you, full to the brim everywhere you go. She's like, do you know how heavy that is? And you carry it with you everywhere you go. She said, honey, you have to decide to set that luggage down and walk away and don't look back. And I was like, how can I do that?
Right.
But you know, that has resonated with me for the last 25 years. And like with other things, like, you know, if there's something that's bothering you and it's totally out of your control and you can't, and festering over it is not going to change the situation because it's already happened.
Yeah.
Set it down and walk away. Live your best life. Let it go.
I love that. My jaw just dropped because there was a saying that I always said was that when I tried to explain to people how I felt was I was like, I have a backpack on that's already filled with binders that are my stuff. Then what I do is I would take other people's backpacks off them and throw it on my shoulder and try to take it for them. But I love that, you know, we can kind of change the narrative in that one and be like, choose to take that backpack off that you're putting on yourself that might not have nothing to do with you, but also that you can't control. So I really, really love that. That's like 10 out of 10 advice. I love that. What is some advice that you would tell your younger self or someone in the younger generation? And it can be about anything.
Wow. Yeah. Tell my younger self, a lot of stuff I would tell her.
Yeah.
But just, I guess, like, you know, when you're younger, you struggle with so many things, so many pressures, because, you know, I guess depending on how young we're talking, but, you know, high school age, let's say.
Yeah.
Junior high, high school, you're already like worried about, you know, who thinks what about you. You're worried about how you look. You're thinking it's all that whole physical thing again. That's maybe you think it's not good enough. You're wondering what you're supposed to do with the rest of your life. Like that's a lot of pressure.
Yeah.
And yeah, my advice would be to like, still think about it because you do have to have some direction in your life and an idea about what it is you want to do, but just enjoy being in the moment. Like you're never going to get those times back again. And your life will probably never be as carefree as it is in those days. So just enjoy it. Enjoy the fact that your parents pay for the roof over your head. Don't be upset about the rules because when you go to work and pay taxes and put the roof over your own head, believe me, you would love to live with your parents sometimes.
Yeah, you're like, I'd love to go back to when that was a thing.
Yeah, so just enjoy where you're at in life because you're never going to be there again and you can't get it back.
Yeah. Episode 16 is Jessica Velasquez's story, not waiting till everything is perfect and being courageous enough to make mistakes. What is some of the best advice you've ever received and from whom?
I'm gonna come back to the more recent one because I have a few, but I've heard from Marie Forleo who said, start before you're ready. And just start. just get going with those dreams. Don't wait until you have it all figured out and perfectly. Just take one step.
Yeah.
And that one step will give you the confidence to the next one, but it takes one step.
Yes. I love it. I love it. And I always think of like this one quote as well as like, what if it turns out way better than you ever imagined? And I just think it's such a good one. It goes really great with that quote as well. So
I
that's
love
an
it.
awesome one.
I'm going to remember that one.
What advice would you give your younger self or someone in the younger generation?
Oh, we've touched a lot about this, but I think if I could go back to when I was, 24 and I abandoned interior design, I would have just go back and said, you know what, it didn't go as the way you thought. Look for alternative solutions. Instead of abandoning your dream, look for different ways of doing it. Analyze what went wrong.
Yeah.
And really think and ask for advice and look for coaching. You don't need to do it alone.
Mm-hmm.
But when things don't go the way you think they should go, if we just abandon it altogether, I think we just need to go back and say, okay, what went wrong?
Mm-hmm.
And what could I have done better? I think I probably would have told that to my 24-year-old self. I would have said, yeah, you didn't expect interior design to go like that in Panama. You had all these dreams. That's okay. You learned. Let's sit down and let's analyze what could you have done better? Because I could have been doing interior design for 20 years. Do I regret not having it done? Or do I regret the real estate path and everything I learned? I don't, because we did learn a lot.
Yeah.
But I think I would have been wiser to just evaluate the whole situation.
Right.
And instead of just, oh, I don't like it, goodbye.
Right. Yeah.
I think that's what I would tell myself.
That is awesome. Okay, my last episode number 17, Nora Higgins' story, dealing with depression and learning how to take up more space in your life. What is some of the best advice you've received and from whom?
So, this is tough because I have been fortunate enough to be exposed to a lot of good advice. So I'm going to share more than one, if that's okay. But one was when I was thinking of making the transition from family medicine to just purely a mental health practice, that was a big change. Mm-hmm. And so I was kind of nervous. Well, what if it doesn't work out? What if this? What if that? And somebody said, well, why don't you just think of it as a sabbatical? Try it. And if you like it, stay. If you don't, go back to family medicine. Yeah. And so to sort of generalize that advice, it's to just think of life as a series of experiments. So, you don't have to be scared to try something, because if it's a successful experiment, fine. If not, you change a variable, change something. Mm-hmm. So you're not scared to make changes that way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's really good. I like that.
And I think we touched on, like, you don't have to be perfect. That's a big one. Something else I was told is there is no one right way. And that really helped me with my indecisiveness, because I was trying to make the right decision, but there's no one right decision. Lots of decisions are perfectly fine. So that gave me great relief and was really liberating. Mm-hmm. And then the idea that everybody is always doing their best. And so they always deserve compassion, not judgment. Mm-hmm. And then another really good piece of advice is just slowing down. Like, we go so fast, our mind goes so fast. We're doing this activity, that activity. And it's so helpful just to slow down and reflect, and just check, well, wait a minute, is that true? Or how am I feeling? Is that trustworthy? Or let me wonder what's true about that. So I think slowing down is really helpful.
Yeah. What is some advice that you would give your younger self?
So I think it would be a lot of the stuff we've said, like you don't have to be perfect, just you are important, like your feelings are important, your well-being is important. Speak up, use your voice, let people know how you feel, how you need, what you need, make requests, take up space. Yeah.
And I love that a lot. My question off that is, because I know you said like you have been doing that more, you have been starting to take up more space. What is the most, powerful thing that you've experienced by doing that?
It has settled my nervous system, actually. Like it just makes me feel more well, more alive, like I'm important. My feelings are important. I don't have to be scared to say, hey, that didn't feel very good when you said that. I'm not sure if I'm answering that question.
No, that's perfect. No, you are answering it. I was trying to see if it made you feel really empowered and inspired.
Empowered. Yeah. You feel like you're stronger.
Yeah.
And you're more worthwhile. It improves your self-esteem, improves your sense of self-worth, of how important you are. And really, for me, I have noticed a distinct feeling of feeling more alive.
Episode 18, Morgan Storch's story, taking your power back, rewriting the narrative, and shifting your mindset. What is some of the best advice you've received and from whom?
Oh man. I'm going to say it again, probably from my mom. She's my rock. And I think of this quite frequently. I think I've said it probably a few times in this interview. If it makes sense to you and it makes you happy, it doesn't need to make sense to anyone else. And I never really understood that. But within the last 2 or 3 years, I've definitely felt it. And you just learn to understand that, you know what, like if they don't understand it, that's okay. But if it genuinely makes you happy, I think us as a human race, like who woke up one day and decided, Kate, this is perfection. You have to be like this. A person exactly like you. There is nothing on this planet that I think can make someone better than another person other than how you treat other people.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so I think if you just kind of step back and look at who set that standard, it's a matter of another person, and you need to reset that standard for yourself and just be.
Yeah, I love that. I love that so much. Something else that you said too that kind of relates to that is that like people are going to criticize you and talk about you no matter what. Like when you said that, I'm like, yes, because it's so true. And so that's why it is so important to do what makes you happy, because people are going to talk about you regardless. So do what makes you happy.
Do what you want.
Yeah, exactly. Our next one is, what is some advice that you would tell your younger self, or if you can't think of it in that context, maybe someone in the younger generation?
Oh my gosh. To myself, honestly, that like there are things that you don't love, that you don't cherish right now, that you are going to wish that you had. And just being is okay. There's no, like, it's not a race. Things are going to be okay. Things are going to work out the way they need to work out. And like, you're just along for the ride, And I joke, people are always like, oh, you're so mature for your age. I think all of my clients think I'm like 28 with a kid. And I'm like, I joke, I'm like, no, like I just have to grow up fast. It was the trauma.
Yeah.
But like, as much as I say that as a joke, like everyone I talk to, they're like, no, like if they've experienced that, it's the truth. And I think just growing up too fast now, like I love it, but there are some pieces that I wish that I hadn't grown up so fast in. But yeah, that's probably what I'd say to little Morgan.
Morgan, I love that. Awesome. Episode 19, Rayanne Warner's story, how to break down emotions and make your circumstances serve you. What is some of the best advice you've received and from whom?
I'm gonna have to say it was my coach.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just, actually, I still have it printed. It was a quote that he gave me, and it was very meaningful. And it said, "A path with no obstacles probably leads nowhere."
Oh, I love that. What a powerful quote. What did that mean to you?
That regardless of the things, the challenges, the boulders that are placed in front of us, it feels like sometimes there's still a path on the other side.
Mm-hmm.
The path doesn't end at the boulder.
Right.
So
yeah, that's a very powerful piece of advice. I hope everyone wrote that down. That's amazing. What is a piece of advice you would tell your younger self or someone in the younger generation?
a lot of what we've talked about today, actually, just do not think that caring for yourself is a selfish act.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you care for yourself and you can be beautifully you in this environment, that's what we need.
Mm-hmm.
That's the only thing that we can expect or want, right?
Mm-hmm. Love it. Mic drop. I love it. Episode 20, Melissa Davis's story, flipping the switch from everything is happening for me, not to me. Question. So what is some of the best advice you've received and from whom?
Well, it's gonna be homeboy. He literally reminds me all the time that life is happening for me and not to me. Mm-hmm. That is the one thing that I will always take away from that friendship.
And that specific lesson, how did it play into your life? Like, how big of a change did that provide for you?
It's still a change to this day. I've been struggling a lot with the nerve pain and not being able to work out like I have been. And, no matter on the days that I feel like I'm just being completely defeated, the universe is out to get me. We all have those moments where we still feel like that. He is literally the voice in my head, David Goggins, Tyson over here. It's like, oh, these two. And it's like reminding me that this is happening for me and not to me, that there is a lesson in everything and that every moment is a moment to be grateful for. And I just feel like knowing where I've come from, knowing what I've gone through, it's the truth. It really is truly the truth. And there is going to be a reason. And, we can say, oh, I'm so tired of starting over. I'm so tired of starting over. This isn't happening for me. This is happening to me. When you flip the switch, all of a sudden, everything instantly changes for you. Your days get brighter. You feel your mood is lighter. You just feel stronger. And so that is the lesson that I've learned from switching the flipping the switch, that it's happening for me and not to me. I'm not a victim. I am a champion. I am somebody I'm a fighter. I'm a survivor. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. That's very powerful advice that you would tell your younger self or someone in the younger generation.
I had a feeling this was going to be one of these questions. I did. I was like,
it's my favorite question. I literally ask it to every single person I know.
A great question. It's a really great question. I think the advice I would give is to not do anything differently. I would do everything the same over and over again. And because of who it has made me today, and to remember who you are, and to literally just keep fighting no matter what. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I don't think I think if I was to tell, I used to think about this question too in my head, like, what would I tell myself at 17 that I now know at 44 or 43 or 40 or whatever? But like, I have to tell you that now at the time in my life, but when I was 17, I used to think 40 was like so old, like that's my mom, like that's so old. But these are the best years of my life. And they have been the hardest and the best years of my life. Mm-hmm. And I don't know, I would tell my younger self, not to
trust the process. Trust the process.
Exactly. Do trust the process.
Yeah.
Trust the process. And also to be so grateful for every single moment that you experience, because it goes by like that. And then you look back and it's gone. It's gone. So live in the moment and trust the process and have gratitude.
Episode 22, Jonina Stensky's story, taking control of your life and getting back in the driver's seat. What is some of the best advice you've received and from whom?
Oh,
That's a really good question. Oh gosh. I've been given a lot of really good advice. One of my favorite things, it's kind of stuck with me since I was a kid. Because when you're a kid and somebody dies, you like hold on to the few things you can remember about them. So I remember when I was a kid and we were like doing homework together, my dad would always say, like, if you're going to do something, do it right. He's the kind of guy who would do his crosswords and ink, that kind of stuff. And for a really long time, I thought that meant like, don't screw up. Like, don't make a mistake. Make sure you've like thought this out and planned, because you only get one shot and then you're like a failure. And I realized, like, literally the other day, I was taking the dogs for a walk and I was like, oh, he didn't mean like be perfect. He just meant like really just try to do your best. And I'm realizing the more time that goes on, like, you're not going to be 100% your best self every day, and nobody should expect that of you. Just show up to where you're at that day and do what you can do, and really be present in your life.
So what is a piece of advice that you would give your younger self, or which you can think of it more in this context, maybe someone in the younger generation?
I think, to add on to what I said before, it's what you and I were talking about, the comparison trap. Like, especially when you're maybe a preteen. Preteen and teens were like the roughest years of my life. There were so many hormones ripping around, but there's a lot of social influence, and we spend a lot of our time trying to like figure out who we are, and so we look to other people for that. And we're trying to imitate others and be more like that person and be less like that person. And somebody makes a comment, and you are very influenced by those around you, and we're constantly comparing ourselves to other people. I would say, if I could give like 12-year-old me some advice, I say like focus more on you, and like obviously there's going to be influence of people around you, but don't forget about doing the things that you want to do, hanging out with the people who make you feel good, who make your life better. Like, spend less time comparing yourself to other people and worrying about what they're doing. Just surround yourself with good people, and try to be authentic. I don't really know what that means yet, but I like the word authentic. I'm trying to be the most authentic Janina. So, yeah.
I like that, because it's like you need to show up for yourself as well, which I feel like is not taught yet. I mean, I don't know if parents are teaching it now, but I mean, I feel like it's like you have to consider what you want to do instead of pleasing everyone else. And that's a hard lesson to learn. I mean, most people don't learn it till they're older, but I mean, the amount of times when I was younger, when I was like, I can't believe what I was doing for literally everyone else and nothing for myself. So that is a very great thing to remind, and a piece of advice that a person in a younger generation needs to hear, because it's so important. Episode 23, Jeff Wilson's story, Love Not Hate and Persevering Through Difficult Times. What is some of the best advice you've received, and from whom?
What's the best advice? I think I won't be specific as to who, because I think it's a given that it doesn't matter. It doesn't. I know this is going to be very cliche. It does not matter how many times you get knocked down. What did you learn, and how hard are you going to come back and get on your feet and fight through whatever it is? Don't ever, ever, ever give up on whatever it is that you want. But you can get knocked down 1,000 times, but you better get up the 1,000th and first time and believe in yourself. You will get through whatever. You got to believe in yourself, though.
Wow, I love that. What advice would you give your younger self, or if you can't think of it like that, someone in the younger generation?
Be patient. Be patient. You're not going to get what you want overnight. Good things, a lot of things take good time and effort, and setbacks. Like I said earlier, there's peaks and valleys, and when you hit the peaks, celebrate it, and when you start going down, hitting the valleys, you got your work cut out for you. But do not stop the work, and don't rely on anybody else. It is you. You have to face whatever it is that you have to do, and it's your story, your journey, and your roadmap to wherever it is that you want to go. But do not give up. It is tough. Life is tough. But again, nothing is given, everything is earned, and you'll have a better appreciation for it, a way better appreciation for it. And don't be hateful.
That's an excellent piece of advice. Episode number 24 and 25 is Sasa Shalom's story. The first one is not measuring your worth by appearance and accomplishments and going after what you want. The second one is TikTok fame, the secret to a successful business, and future plans after Miss Utah. What is some of the best advice you've received and from whom?
My mom always says the only person I can change is me. And I love that. That's been life-changing advice.
I love that. I love that so much. Oh, that's amazing. Okay, so what is a piece of advice that you would tell your younger self or someone in the younger generation? A piece of advice. What advice would you give your younger self or someone in the younger generation?
I think basically what you just said. I have a lot of regret about my younger years when I think about how much time I wasted worrying about my body. Because what's so sad is that I was beautiful then, beautiful now, and it was a complete waste of time. So that's probably the advice that I would give is, hey sis, don't worry about it. You're going to be so hot when you're 25. And then the other piece of advice that I'd probably give myself is that you have more time than you think that you do. I think in life, it's so easy to feel like we're behind schedule and everything in the schedule is rolling out exactly how it should be. If I would have won Miss Utah or any of the state pageants that I tried when I was a teenager, I would not have won it at the correct time because I would not have had my business. I wouldn't have my online platform. Everything about my life would be different. And so the timing I had to just trust to roll out in the way that it was supposed to for me. And so that would be the biggest piece of advice.
Episode 26, Tammy Butcher's story, discovering your passion and focusing on the good throughout the journey.
I'm ready.
All right. What is the best piece of advice you've received and from whom?
Oh my gosh. The best piece of advice, don't take life so seriously. Always laugh. That was from my grandma, my Mima, before she passed away.
And I have a question off of that. So what is something people can do to laugh and be a little bit more carefree and happy? Like, what have you done? Because I watch you on social media and I'm like, this girl knows how to have fun. She knows how to have a good time.
Well, let me tell you something. I learned a long time ago that if you can't laugh at yourself and be authentically you, then I just feel like you should always be authentically you. And if people like you, great. If they dislike you, great. I'm not for everybody, but if I'm authentically me, I know I will find more people that are my people.
Right. Oh, that's so awesome. What piece of advice would you give your younger self or someone in the younger generation?
Oh, for sure. Just like you and I were talking, Selena, don't focus so much on what is coming. Don't focus so much on your future and stress you out because trust me, you're going to do so many things that are going to show you what you don't want to do. You're going to do so many jobs that are going to show you what you don't want to do as a job. You're going to do so many things in life that will show you what you don't want to do. So don't pass those, don't pass those opportunities by and do a lot of different things because then you'll dwindle it down to the one or two things that you are so passionate about. So don't be afraid to do it all. And then somehow it always comes right back here to what you have to do and what you love to do.
Awesome. I love that. Okay. Episode 27, Shelby Morris's story, shifting your mindset to live the life of your dreams and redefining what it means to be a social media influencer. What is the best advice you've received and from whom?
Oh my gosh. Oh, I'm really going to have to think about this one.
These ones are going to be hard to think about. They're really good ones.
I couldn't remember like a specific person giving me a quote, but I can remember the amount of times that my mom has just like reminded me to be myself. And that is the best piece of advice that I could give anybody, is just to be yourself. Like, especially in today's world, people are angry, people are scared, people are sensitive, and that's okay. But as long as you're just yourself every day, then you go home with no regrets because you were just yourself today.
Yeah, and I think to add on to that is that it's so important that we are ourselves, because then we find the right people.
Absolutely.
That's really important. When we're trying to be something we're not, it never ends up good. We need to be able to express our true self. So that is a fantastic piece of advice. Question: what piece of advice would you give your younger self? Or if you can't think of it in that context, maybe someone in the younger generation?
I think I would tell my younger self that nobody else's opinion matters, because, you know, there are still times today where I do worry a little bit about what people think, and it depends on the situation. Like, it depends on who I think I might be affecting. But like, when it comes to social media, I've had many people who know nothing about me and know nothing about my life make judgments, and I did let that get to me at a certain point. And it definitely tears you down, and you can't let that happen, because at the end of the day, like, your emotions are very sensitive. You're vulnerable, and sometimes it can be seen as being a little bit weak in a way, and people attack that. So I just, don't listen to what other people say, because honestly, nobody knows you better than you know yourself, or better than your parents know you.
Absolutely. I love that as well.
Yeah.
Episode 29, Isaiah Springer's story, the mindset of a high-level athlete and bouncing back from burnout. What is the best piece of advice you've received, and from whom?
I think the best advice I've received is from my father, and just he's like, and just that lesson that I talked about earlier is be in tune with your body, and realize when you're maybe at that point, that tipping point where you've been working really, really, really hard, and you may need to hit the brakes before you run off the cliff. Because I feel that there's a lot of people that are like me who just love work. They just love work. They're addicted. They're addicted to working really, really hard all the time. And unfortunately, they don't see that cliff before it hits. And I think my dad that's probably what's kept me in sport for as long as I have been, and enjoying sport as long as I have been, is just being able to stop myself before I run over that cliff.
Yeah, that's a very, very important piece of advice. What piece of advice would you tell your younger self or someone in the younger generation?
What I like to tell is a couple of things. I think they kind of go in tandem. Is don't be afraid to fail, and push yourself. Push yourself, but push yourself to a point that so you don't run off that cliff.
Yeah.
Keep like, it's, for me, it's a lot of internal drive. Figure out what drives you inside, so that you don't need those outside voices telling you to keep going. Find something that you love that pushes you to be the best version of yourself. And at the same time, while you're trying to push to be the best version of yourself, don't worry about if you may not get there or if you may fail. So those two big things.
That's very important. And I think it's said a lot, but it's very important that failure is part of it, and you learn and grow. So failure is never a waste of time also. So that's very important as well. Thank you again so much. I am so excited to see where this podcast goes in the next year. This podcast has grown so much because of you, and I am so grateful that you tune in every other week to listen to this podcast. There are so many exciting things coming up this year, and I can't wait to have so many beautiful conversations with you all. Thank you, and I hope you have the most beautiful day. Bye.